Good morning. Before talking specifically about today's passage, I'd like to briefly recap what John has said about Jesus' mystery thus far in the gospel. Jesus called his disciples, beginning with Andrew, Simon, Philip, and Nathanael. He performed the first of his signs by turning water into wine at the wedding at Cana. Although John alludes to many other signs Jesus performed during the early part of his ministry in Galilee, Capernaum, and Jerusalem, so far he only provides 3 examples. While Jesus was talking to a woman from Samaria whom he had never met before, he told her all about her past. He healed a royal official's son who was near the point of death. And he healed a man who had been paralyzed for 38 years. This work Jesus had done, these signs he had performed, brought Jesus a lot of attention. Large crowds followed him wherever he went. Now we arrive at today's passage from the Gospel of John, in which he talks about 3 separate events. To begin, Jesus feeds 5,000 hungry followers. I'll talk more about that in a moment. Next, the crowd was so inspired by that sign, as well as others they had witnessed and heard about, they wanted to make him king. Well, Jesus did not want to be king, at least not an earthly king. In the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus describes himself as a servant, one who serves. He did not want to be served. So he withdrew to the solitude of a mountain. And then Jesus walked on water during a strong storm. He brought tranquility to the lake, calmed the disciples' fears, and rescued them. With that background, I'll focus on Jesus' feeding of the 5,000. You know the story. A large crowd followed Jesus because he had been curing the sick. I imagine that many of them were sick themselves and were hoping to be cured, while others were just curious onlookers. Regardless, a multitude had followed him a long distance, and they were hungry, perhaps even hangry. The only readily available food was 5 loaves and 2 fish, not nearly enough for everyone to get even a morsel. Jesus did not focus on the scarcity of food, however. Instead, he gave thanks to his Father for that which was available. His disciples distributed the food to the multitude, and to their surprise, there was more than enough to go around. Everyone ate their fill, and there were abundant leftovers, 12 baskets full. God the Father, the provider, had multiplied the loaves and fishes to meet everyone's need. Said in a more generic way, Jesus looked with compassion on the people in need, gave thanks to the Father for the gifts he had provided, and shared those gifts with the less fortunate. The Father had provided more than enough to go around. So, how does this relate to us? Although we love to help others, our resources are limited. We can only donate so much money to charitable organizations. We can only spare so much time to help each other hands-on. We do what we can with what we've got, but our resources are limited. Thinking outside the box a bit, do we have at our disposal less limited or perhaps even unlimited resources of some kind? Perhaps resources that God the Father provides to us for the benefit of others. In one of the lectures assigned to our ministry formation class last spring, the lecturer expressed his belief that the Apostle Paul's message to us about grace boils down to: grace is God's free gift of life-giving power given to us for the benefit of others. And that we become channels of God's grace when we offer ourselves in Christ-like ways to others. What might God's free gifts to us consist of? While some are tangible and limited, does God provide us with intangible things that we can share, pass along to each other, make available to our neighbors and to the less fortunate and to the marginalized in our society that will never run out? Does God provide anything that we can share without concern about its depletion? I believe so. Instead of things, let's call these attributes, perhaps virtues, and I believe they are unlimited. Virtues like compassion, mercy, kindness, and love, to name a few. Our Father in heaven provides these to us in abundance. We have an unlimited supply available to us 24/7, free of charge, and He intends for us to use them for the benefit of others. Collectively, I believe the Apostle Paul would call these grace. Perhaps we aren't able to literally feed 5,000 by ourselves with a few loaves and fish. However, by God's gifts of compassion, mercy, kindness, love, and the like, in other words, by His grace, we figuratively feed each other. And I believe we feed on each other. Together, we can exponentially share God's grace far and wide. So, by God's grace and with God's grace, we can feed 5,000.